Just 1 year after John Brown boldly seized control of the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, Gillis Methodist Church was founded by the late George Gillis Russell, the grandfather of attorney George Russell, in 1860. Very little is known about the church's history from 1860 to 1932, but we do know that the members of the congregation experienced the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, the assassination of President Lincoln, the stock market crash of 1929, and unemployment reaching 13 million in 1932. Despite the dismal state of the Union, there was a light that was about to shine in a small alley in Baltimore. In 1933, Reverend Theodore C. Jackson Sr. was appointed pastor of Gillis Methodist Church, located on Stockton Street. At the same time, Mr. Morris Blum, president of WANN, wanted to tap into the black culture by providing a Christian radio station for blacks. Reverend Jackson became the first black minister to broadcast on the radio. Mr. Chuck Richards was the narrator, and Mrs. Sylvia Persons and Mrs. Pauline Wells Lewis, known as the Gospel Duo, provided the music. Later, the Word of God and the Songs of Zion were broadcast daily over the Open Heart Hour on WANN. Reverend Jackson, along with various singers associated with the Open Heart Hour, made appearances in Delaware, the Eastern Shore, Calvert, and Amac County, as well as Virginia. Through this broadcast, many people gave their life to Christ and became members of Gillis. We were fondly known as the friendly church around the corner for years. It was at the Stockton Street location where we established our first trustee board, choir, and usher board.
Well, the choir was really organized. We used to have a BYPU at Sunday afternoon around 6. It was nothing but young people. And with these young people, we had a little program. They would pray and they would sing. So we finally decided that we would have a choir. And then we had to get the choir's name. Well, they were families, children from the families that belonged to the church. And we called ourselves the Do What You Can Singers. From the Do What You Can, we started getting older and all. So we say, well, we'll change our name to the Junior Choir. Then at the Junior Choir, these are the same people. When the Junior Choir got older, they said, well, maybe we need to go to the Intermediate Choir. So we changed our name to the Intermediate Choir. So then after that, we said, no, we was getting older than that. We was too old for the Intermediate. So we went to the Young Adult Choir. But then as the young adult choir, some of them became mothers and all. So we said, no, we can't do this. They didn't want to separate, so we changed our name now to the Sanctuary Choir of Gillis. And that's where we've been ever since.
From these organizations, other groups began to blossom. The First Lady of Gillis, Mrs. Lucy Jackson, along with Mrs. Naomi Miller, created our Flower Circle. Their primary responsibility was to ensure that flowers were always present on the altar. Our first Sunday school was under the leadership of Becky Fisher, Helen Cole, Julia Harrison, and Carrie Hart. It is still in existence under the leadership of First Lady Marlene Jackson and Mrs. Cora Campbell. Beyond the obvious duties and responsibilities of each organization, they were always available to provide whatever service or financial support was needed for the church and or our pastor.
We would go on Saturday mornings, be picked up by my husband sometime or hers, and then Mr. Harrison Young also. We would have the bucket, but we had bags to put the coal in so we could have heat in our church. And I look back and loved working with my church. Whatever to be done, I'm there to do it.
Mr. Harrison Young would pick up Mrs. Janie Campbell on Saturday mornings and take us to the racetrack to pick up the coals. We would pick up the coals, and sometimes the bucket would be so heavy that he would come back and pick up the bucket and take it to the church and take Mrs. Janie Campbell and I home. And we thought that the time was very hard. But looking back over those times, they was good times, because look at us now, where Gillis Memorial has come from.
Reverend Jackson Sr. was a true friend to all gospel singers, having been the first in Baltimore to promote some of the finest and most outstanding groups throughout the country. They included the great Mahalia Jackson, Roberta Martin Singers, Clara Ward and the Ward Singers, the Dixie Hummingbirds, the Kings of Harmony, James Cleveland, the Harmonizing Four, Reverend Clay Evans, and many, many more. It is for this reason our church was known as the Singing Church.
They would just come, and there wasn't an offering at all. There was donations that were taken up because they would help them for gas to get to the next place, or something to eat, or just trivial things. We took it as trivial, but this was their means of getting to the next place.
As we continued to rejoice in the Lord, the world was in turmoil. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 2nd, 1941, and the U.S. officially entered World War II. Two major events happened in 1947. They were Jackie Robinson became the first black baseball player in the major leagues, and Gillis Memorial moved to Calhoun and Mulberry Streets. Initially, the church was occupied by a white congregation in the morning, and we worshiped in the afternoon. Through a generous loan deposit of $5,000 by Mr. and Mrs. Allen and several members putting up their home as collateral for loan, we were able to secure the facility on Calhoun and Mulberry Streets. The church was a dream come true in the life of Reverend Theodore C. Jackson Sr. and his beloved wife, the late Lucy Jackson. The bishop attempted to remove Reverend Jackson Sr. as pastor of our church.
The bishop come, he wasn't only there by himself, he had another man with him. Then the senior ushers lined up across the church. And this way, he was pushing his way, and I asked one of the ushers, please move and let me take your place. And I asked him, what is your problem? He said, we come to take the church today. And I said to him, I don't think so. I said, please get your friend and his hat and you, and please leave our church and leave us alone. After Bishop left, all the ushers came off the floor. We went in the sideway and we prayed about it. And we wanted Reb to know that we were there to help him and God was going to help him. And I've never seen those men anymore.
That was the strength, I think, of the officers of that church. They stood their ground because we loved Reverend Jackson Sr. and we were determined that he was not going to be taken away from the church just because the bishop thought that now because he was a lay pastor that he couldn't have a congregation of more than 250 people.
Reverend Jackson and the congregation, we had service, and that was the best service that we had had during that whole month because everybody came together as one family.
It was at that time the membership of Gillis voted to leave the Methodist Conference in 1951. Gillis joined the National Association Council of Community Churches of America and Elsewhere, Incorporated, which was organized under the leadership of the late Wilbur Waters. After joining the council, the name of our church was changed to Gillis Memorial Christian Community Church.
Well, the little money that we did have all came from the families. All the families put their little money together out of their several homes and all. And that's what we did to keep the church going. You know, we sold suppers and pies and whatever it took. to make finance to keep it going. It wasn't much, but it kept us afloat.
We worked, and when we worked, we always would save a portion of our money. We knew what had to go on at the church. If you are a good member in your church, you must help your church in whatever dance or what job they have for you to do your best.
We sold dinners for 50 cents, 75 cents, and $1. We had, on the third Sunday especially, so that we could raise the money for our pastor, just to give him something since he was not on salary. We had all of our good programs, and we paid 10 cents admission to come in. Everybody paid 10 cents. And around 1939, we went up to a quarter, so that's how we raised our money.
Well, when we got ready for the pictures, we went out with them, but it wasn't hard times like it used to be, like it is now. We would sell those pictures, and we always would say a Bible verse. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. And we did well, and God was with us.
For the next 2 decades, our country experienced the peak of the civil rights movement. In history, the Supreme Court ruled racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional in 1954 with Brown versus the Board of Education. The Montgomery bus boycott began in 1955. The Greensboro sit-in took place in 1960, and the Freedom Riders began in 1961. Reverend Jackson was very concerned about the plight of the black people. To show his support, Gillis became a lifetime member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and participated in the Civil Rights March on Washington in 1963. After years of demonstration, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. Unfortunately, an act did not change the minds and hearts of every citizen. In 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were assassinated. Despite the unrest that was occurring throughout the country, Gillis Memorial Christian Community Church was forced by the city of Baltimore to relocate in December 1968 to Park Heights Avenue to make way for an expressway. Fortunately, we were able to bring several artifacts from Calhoun and Mulberry Streets to our new location. They were the marble altar and 3 stained glass designs. Our slogan changed from the friendly church around the corner to the friendly church in the middle of the block.
It was a friendly place, and it always had its name as the friendly church on the corner and in the middle of the block. So it became family.
Well, the family church is like the members, they came, the mothers came. When the mothers came, they brought their children. And so the family, we just band together. What had to be done, we just did it, whether it was suppers, whether it was getting coal for the stove or whatever. So that the families just joined together and did that as families.
We was a family church. When we moved to Calhoun and Mulberry Street, Mrs. Janie Campbell and I would stand on the front of the church and sell Reverend Jackson Sr. pictures, Aunt Pauline Wells' picture, and Mrs. Silver's person picture. We would stay on the outside until we sold every picture. Then we would come back in the church and usher until the church closed up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
In the late 1960s, Reverend Jackson Jr. resigned from the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church Conference and transferred into the United Council of Christian Community Churches of Maryland and vicinity to assist his then ailing father, Reverend Theodore C. Jackson Sr. He gained tremendous experience as he worked untiringly beside his father, serving the Gillis family as co-pastor. On July 3, 1970, Reverend Theodore C. Jackson Sr. passed from labor to reward after serving as pastor of Gillis Memorial Christian Community Church for 38 years. Many famous public officials and dignitaries were present to pay tribute to a great man who, through his ministry, many lives were touched, many souls were saved, and spiritual guidance given to both young and old. He was a great pastor and leader, a devoted husband and father. He performed over 900 weddings, 1,000 funerals, and numerous christenings. Reverend Theodore C. Jackson Sr. served as acting pastor until he was installed as pastor on the first Sunday in November 1970. Gillis continues to use the radio as a means to reach the community at large. In addition to WANN, we have been heard on WSID, WBGR, and now WCAO, Heaven 600. Under Reverend Dr. Theodore C. Jackson, Jr., the church organization has remained the same as under his father. Pastor Jackson brought his administrative and ministerial experiences that he acquired when he was chaplain at the Anna Mae Hunter Home for the Blind. Some other prior experiences included an internship in the Christian Methodist, Episcopal, and Baptist churches and pastorates at St. Matthew's in Washington, D.C., and Herbert's Chapel in Fairfield, Maryland. Under the leadership of Reverend Dr. Theodore C. Jackson, Jr., an old vision was expanded upon, while a new vision was implemented for the next 37 years. By the 1990s, our church had 28 associate ministers, 7 choirs, numerous Bible classes, as well as teaching ministries. A variety of programs were established during this time period. They include Christian Training Union, Adopt a Son program, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Cubs, Brownies, Church Basketball Team, and the Patricia Ann Jackson Memorial Scholarship Fund. In addition, Gillis completed Phase 2 of its expansion plans, a $1.5 million addition onto the church. The Christian Education Center and administrative wing of the church includes an elevator for the handicapped, a baptismal pool, a chapel, a library, a pastor's study, a boardroom, classrooms, and administrative offices. Further, the sanctuary was enhanced with new stained glass windows. The altar from Calhoun Street was restored, and the exterior of the building was cleaned and sandblasted to create a fresh look. In October 2003, Reverend Melvin Jackson was elected co-pastor of Gillis Memorial Christian Community Church due to the increase in administrative and ministerial duties and the recent illness of Reverend Theodore C. Jackson, Jr. In 2006, Reverend Melvin Jackson was elevated to pastor, beginning an era of dual pastoralship at Gillis Memorial. Over the years, Gillis can boast of some of the world's most outstanding personalities who have visited the church. The late Congressman Adam Clayton Powell preached the installation services at Calhoun and Mulberry Streets. The congregation was blessed with a sermonic solo by the renowned pianist Hazel Scott, wife of Congressman Powell. The late Governor Theodore McKeldin was among the many well-known politicians who frequently visited Gillis. Other noteworthy politicians included the late Hubert Humphreys, the late Senator Joseph Tidings, the late Senator Verda Welcome, the late Congressman Parham Mitchell, and Senator Jack Kennedy. Public officials such as Judge George Russell, the late Milton Allen, and the late Dr. Lily M. Jackson, former state president of the NAACP. Our church has worked with the city and community to provide outreach services for those in need. The church supports the Food Distribution Center, operates a clothing center, provides assistance to the needy, and works tirelessly to improve conditions within the community. From 1933 to 2006, in U.S. history, the members of Gillis have had 29 presidents. From 1933 to 2006, in Gillis Memorial's history, Reverend Theodore C. Jackson Sr. and Reverend Theodore C. Jackson Jr. cultivated approximately 87 ministers. Of the 87 ministers, 20 are currently pastors. Through his dedication and loyalty to the cause of Christ, Pastor Theodore C. Jackson Jr. has rendered a life of service to mankind and has directed many lives to meaningful service and devotion to God. Over the years, Gillis has changed greatly.